I wanted to work in public school again. And so then I ended up working in a private school. And kids were great. It was okay. But it ended up being a horrible situation. And, like, I don't know how much you want me to get into.
Go crazy right now.
Well, I mean, it was honestly just the shittiest situation. So on the side of teaching science, they also had me teaching like an advisory class, the kids would come to. I think it was every day. I can't remember. But particularly on Fridays, we would spend a lot of time together. And so the advisory class, they'd either be doing homework or there'd be some kind of organized activity. It was kind of like a homework help. And this was during, the lockdown pandemic. So I started on campus, then we went into lockdown and everything was Zoom. And then there were George Floyd was murdered and Portland was under a lot of there was a lot of unrest in Portland, and as a result of that and the Black Lives Matter movement and whatnot, there were daily, nightly protests. And that was something that was also just really prevalent in our country, too. So our administration asked all of the advisory teachers to spend that Friday focusing on talking with the kids about the history of police brutality against Black Americans in America. And they gave us some tips. They were like, you can talk about Ahmaud Arbery, you can talk about the man, I can't remember his name, but the man who was in the Central Park, and there was the Central Park Karen who basically fake called the cops on him type of deal. There was just all this stuff, and they were like, here are the bullet points that you can start with. And then they said, but you don't need to lead the conversation. This should just be, because I also hadn't had training, and it's a really intense topic, right? And I didn't necessarily know how to discuss the history of police brutality against Black Americans and also the present culture of racism, with middle schoolers. And especially in Portland, where there's a very thick history of that, racism and white.
In Oregon?
Yes,
really?
White supremacy. It was like
in Oregon?
Yes.
I thought Oregon was like super liberal.
Portland is liberal, but they have a very, very, very deep history. I mean, it's very white there.
Portland became super liberal because of the college?
I don't know why they became liberal.
Okay.
I couldn't tell you why. I can just tell you that, Oregon itself was like the western home of the Ku Klux Klan.
Oregon?
Yes. They migrated there because they felt like it was more it was very close in terms of the values that they had in the South. There was a lot of redlining, which is like, where Black people were not allowed to own homes and kept out of neighborhoods. They weren't allowed to walk around in neighborhoods without papers past a certain time in the day. And this went on within my lifetime, and I'm 40. And so learning that, I was just like, what? This isn't ancient history. This is stuff, that is still present. Anyway, there's a lot of white silence too, I think, because of that shame. So people get real frigid around the topic because they're just like, am I implicated in this? Or I don't know how to talk about this or whatever. I don't know. They're too polite there in a way too. So regardless, they told me to open this conversation up and have it be an open space for the kids to talk about what they clearly already knew about because it was all over the media and all in their backyards and everything. So that's what we did. And it was a very beautiful day where the kids were super, taking risks, and these were very privileged white kids too, and they really wanted to talk about their privilege or talk about what they thought was going on, in a way that enabled them to process and think about it and grow and layer on deeper thoughts regarding the greater issues, going on. Anyway, one thing led to another, and one of the kids in the Zoom, he was an 8th grader, he asked if he could share a clip, how you can do with Zoom, where you enable someone to share their screen or whatever. So he he wanted to show us something from the news that he had seen, and it happened to be a portion of what, the George Floyd murder, where the cop was standing on George's neck, and he was suffocating. So he put that clip on for, I don't know, about 5 seconds, 10 seconds, I don't know. And then, it was like, okay, that's enough. And then we talked about it, and one of the girls in the group, in the class, I couldn't see, she would never turn her screen on, but she was rightfully horrified by what she had seen, and she was one of the only ones that hadn't yet seen it on social media and whatnot. And apparently she was so upset by it, and I didn't know, so I couldn't address it, that she was sobbing all night. She felt it hard, which makes sense. But her mom, basically was interrogating her because she wouldn't tell her mom why she was crying. And she finally got it out of her that she had seen this horrible thing, And her mom went nutso and basically wanted my job.
Are you serious?
Yeah, so she got me fired.
Damn,
Yeah.
Bro, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was just it was a private school, so I had no protections. And I'd literally just been rehired the week before. Mm-hmm. So I'd gone through this whole interview process, and they were so congratulatory. They were like, we think you're going to be great. You're so qualified for this. I had done so much work for that school, too, like getting it into the distance learning era, too, which was hard to transition to. And then they fucking fired me because I don't know if she had, several kids in the school. She took it to the board because my supervisors didn't, like the principal, she spoke with me about it. She's like, basically she's really upset, but I think it's going to be okay. Like you'll learn where we draw those boundaries here, because it's very weird. It's an art school. We're really like open about a lot of things, and then other areas we're rigid. She's like, but you'll figure that out. You're from a public school. It's different. And then a month later, her higher up was the one that then terminated my contract because of that.
Did she call you on the phone?
The higher up?
Yeah.
Yes.
What'd she say?
He asked me about the day. He's like, I just was curious because I have to go to a board meeting. So I was wondering if you could just take me through that day. And it was in the middle of the summer, And I said, sure. So I shared, and he seemed amenable to all of it. And then I got an email the next day saying, we find that all problematic, that, we know you didn't put the video on. We think the video is too intense. We know you didn't put it on, but we expect you to anticipate these things as the teacher, and, that I should have known and stopped it from happening or something. It was bullshit. I got screwed over. And that was sort of just the last straw for me. I was just like, I'm done with teaching. You don't get paid anything. You put they ask you to do everything, and they blame you for everything. And
yeah, I feel like what a pussy sending you an email to fire you. You know what I mean? And then the second thing is these were 8th graders?
It was all middle. It was 6th, 7th, 8th graders. Yeah. but it was mostly 8th graders. And the girl who was upset, she was very young. She was in 6th grade. So I get
That's interesting that her mom cared so much about it. Like, I feel like when I was in 6th grade, I, like...
The helicopter moms. And that's the thing about, you know...
It's like, dude, like...
Private schools, they're just very, very, very... You know, if their kid falls down and gets a scratch on the knee, like, somebody's gonna pay for that.
And that's just no way to live life.
Mm.
Like, as the mom, and, like, I just... Don't you want your children to be exposed to the real world and how cold society is? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, and that people have different points of view on whether or not it was okay. Either way, I didn't set it up and I didn't plan it, and I was doing exactly what they asked me to do, which was to not lead the conversation, but to leave open space for the kids to share and explore and, you know, talk about what was going on. And so to be let go while doing exactly what I was being asked to do, and also had not shown, you know, like, poor judgment in any way. It was, yeah. So that was the last straw. And I just basically decided, I was just, you know, teaching, I loved the kids and I loved doing it, but there was a lot of heartbreak, I felt like.
How long